Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and today I wanted to discuss the weirdest hate that readers get from other readers. Specifically, the hate that other people can just decide that you're reading too much. They have set an arbitrary number, and if you claim to have read more books in that time frame above that number, you're wrong. You're lying, you're not doing it correctly, you're a bad reader, and so on and so forth. And they don't necessarily use those words specifically. No, they'll say something like, any booktuber that claims they're reading over 10 books a month is lying to you. Or anyone that says they read over 100 books a year isn't really reading. They're not really taking in the stories. They're just reading 100-page fluff to build up their numbers. And it's so strange and seems pretty unique to reading. I don't see it in a lot of other hobbies. If you have, please let me know. I want to see how widespread this is. But it's also seems very one-sided, in my opinion, at least. I will see plenty of people telling the people that read a lot that they're not really doing it. You're just trying to normalize reading a lot. They're just trying to normalize it. Like everyone that reads a lot has a secret agenda that they're trying to force everybody else to read a lot too. Like the only agenda I have is that you should be using your library more. Just like if you're going into like use their computer banks, print something out. Just like they need the help, guys. Okay. And by one-sided, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen it in reverse. I've been around the bookish community online for 7-8 years now, and I have never seen a post or a video that's like, oh, people who read under 10 books a year aren't real readers. They don't deserve to be readers. Like, I haven't seen that. If you have, please let me know. Receipts, name and shame and all that. But most of the time when I've seen people trying to defend their position, they just assume the people that read a lot must be secretly judging everyone else, and they're just apparently mind readers that know that the people who read a lot are secretly mentally judging everybody, and so they deserve to be judged back. But like, the only people in my circle that I've seen who are thinking about the numbers of others is themselves from last year. Everyone's trying to beat last year's record, last year's goals. But I've never, literally ever, and this was back when I used to be on like constant chats with other booktubers, literally never heard anyone say a word about people who read less. Ever. If you've seen it, let me know. But like, this recurring discourse seems to be very clearly from one side to the other and not in reverse. Now, I have many theories about why this kind of critique exists, so let's just go through some of them. The first is knee-jerk defensiveness. They read a post, see a picture, watch a video about how this person read a gigantic amount of books in that month, 20 maybe, and they immediately feel bad about the amount of books they read that month because maybe they only read 3, and so they assume that because they feel bad, the person that made that post, that picture, that video must want them to feel bad. They must be sending a message through the screen that they're going to try to force you to read more, that you're bad if you haven't read more, when that's not what the post, video, or picture actually said. And this was something that was really difficult for me to grasp personally, not in reading, but as an infertile woman. It was really hard to explain to friends and family that their joyous announcements were actually leaving me in tears, and could they just tell me in writing and not to my face so I didn't have to pretend that I wasn't dying a little inside. And it was really tough conversations to have. And it sucked that there were entire kinds of books and online posts that I just had to block out because I personally felt terrible reading them, while knowing that the people that were posting those things meant no ill. It was very difficult, and thankfully I am in a much better place. It turns out that much of my struggle was not that I necessarily wanted to have the baby specifically, but just feeling like I was fighting my own body to force it to do a thing it clearly did not want to do. Today, I am happily childless. I am the eccentric aunt getting Christmas presents from the Renaissance Fair, and I am happy to be that. But for a very long time, I had to accept that I could not handle certain things, And it was no fault of the people that were putting out those announcements and that content. And it might be that way for someone else, that you just genuinely feel terrible when you see these giant amounts that other people are reading. You can still block, click not interested, unfollow, whatever it is. You don't have to have some big moral grandstand to just quietly not indulge in that creator's content anymore. Just quietly, little boundary in place, click the button and move on. That's valid, but pretending that there must be attacking you on purpose, that's a little silly. The next one is a wider societal issue, but I genuinely believe that a large portion of the populace does not understand that reading is still a skill you can push and grow in beyond school. A lot of adults in America have this assumption that the reading is done when school is done. And even then, a lot of adults aren't reading at even a senior in high school level. They've done the survey a couple times. I believe at one point, the average American adult was reading at a 6th grade level. The last time I checked, I believe it was up to 7th grade. So there's been some movement. I'm not exactly sure how the survey was conducted to decide that, but if the average adult is reading at a middle schooler's level, then yes, someone else reading at an adult's level is going to look abnormally high. But if you've gone up through a lot of schooling, you'll know that reading as a skill doesn't end in high school. No readathon that I have ever participated in has pushed me as much as my history degree did. That bachelor's, especially my senior year, that was tough. It was a gigantic amount of reading that I had to do, both for weekly assignments and for general papers, and I could not bullshit that year. Okay, I could bullshit every other year, but in that year, I was dealing with those professors' hyperfixations. This was the era, the place that they had made their entire career on, and I could not get away with faking it. And I had to learn a bunch of reading skills and just push myself a lot to get that done. So yeah, a novel isn't gonna be much to me anymore. I've already had to push way beyond that. And yes, you can still grow your reading as a skill outside of school, or you can just grow more familiar. If you read a lot of books, you start to see the flow of whatever act structure you're working in. If it's the Western 3-story act, if it's the Japanese 4-act, I don't remember the name of it. Editing, Margaret?
Kisho Tenketsu.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But once you start reading that more and more, you recognize the patterns, you recognize that author's writing style, and now those books read faster for you. Because the more you do a thing, the faster you get at it. No one who's reading 100, 150 books a year was reading no books last year. They were usually doing it for years and worked up to that gigantic amount of books. It is a thing you can grow if you want to. You don't have to. I know a lot of people who are like, yep, 1 book a month, that's enough for me. Never need to get in more than that. And great. We need more casual people reading. We need more people just being willing to read at all. Again, really low literacy rates in American adults. But regardless, yes, you can grow it. You can get better at it, even as an adult, even just reading a lot. You can gain familiarity and speed the process up. Theory number 3 of why this critique happens is when people assume that everybody is like them, and therefore, if they could not read that large amount of books, everyone else must be lying. And if this was true, if our ability levels decided what everybody else's ability levels are, I would claim that every single person who's ever done a movie marathon was lying, was a horrible liar that was normalizing watching a bunch of movies, because I could not. I struggle with visual narrative media. Hardcore. I recently watched Fellowship of the Ring for the first time. I had to watch it over 2 days. 2 separate watching sessions, and I paused it constantly. I think the first time I paused it was 10 minutes in. I'm not joking because my brain just struggles that much with a visual narrative in media. Now give me a book. Okay, you hand me that Christine Feehan or that Nalini Singh, that shit's hitting the end in 24 hours. No problem. But a movie, way harder. I brought a crochet project to the last movie theater I went to just because I needed something for my hands to do to be able to get through a 2-hour movie. Yes, I have taken all the self-evals, and yes, they say exactly what you'd expect. But my point is, the movie marathons, right, where someone decides to watch all of Star Wars or all of Lord of the Rings in one day, in one go, that feels like witchcraft to me. How do you do that? How is your brain not screeching at you in exhaustion? Do not get it. But that's how other people's brains work. I have a friend who is a gigantic cinephile and will watch movies constantly. And when the Oscar nominees come up, he will go out and make sure to watch every single movie that he has not already seen so that he can accurately predict who he thinks is going to win the Oscars. Could not be me. Could never be me. But that's how his brain likes the media. That's how he wants to spend his time. And let's be clear, not to turn this into like a social media diatribe, everyone is probably nickel and diming themselves on their phones more than they think. There have been plenty of those challenges where people say, oh, I'm going to take my screen time and read during that time, and they realize just how much time they spent on their screens. Like, those apps are literally made to be addictive. Literally made to make you not want to put them down. So yeah, there might be more time in your day than you think. Maybe only a half hour, but if you're reading a lot and you're reading consistently, that half hour adds up a lot. And again, you don't have to want that. We just have to accept that some people do want to be reading on their lunch breaks and after work and before bed and just genuinely enjoy the act of what they're doing, and wanting to do a thing more than the average person does not make them a liar. Number 4, and our final theory, is how the weird morality that gets put on books affects the way people think of them and think of reading. And this is why I think that this critique is so specific to readers as a whole, because other kinds of media don't necessarily get this level of morality value falsely put upon it. But you may have heard about it, right? The person that reads a lot must be more intellectual. They must be doing the goodly, bettering thing of expanding their mind. They must inevitably be improving themselves with every book. Like, no, the average reader is going to be reading pulpy stuff. Is going to be reading, the goofy, kitschy stuff sometimes. Or the satires. Or the just super scary horrors just for fun. And this is a level of morality that doesn't get put on a lot of other forms of media. Like, if I tell you, oh, I have a friend that likes watching movies, you don't immediately assume that he's watching prestige films and auteur films and documentaries. And if I tell you that I like listening to music, you don't automatically assume that I am listening to classical pieces. We accept that popcorn movies and pop music exist and just are things, but there tends to be this knee-jerk assumption around reading that it is the bettering thing, that it is the thing that must, by default, be expanding your mind and improving you as a person, when it's just another form of media. It can have terribly bigoted things in it. It can be very poorly written, but in a way that's kind of fun, like the B movies that are so bad it's good. I have read my fair share of romances that in hindsight were terribly written and overly melodramatic, but damn it if I didn't love them. And the person that reads a lot understands this. The vast majority of people that are hitting those 150 books aren't reading only those kinds of books. Not because they don't want to expand their minds, but because no one really only participates in the highbrow, goodly, better media. There's a reason popcorn movies and pop music exist. And yeah, you can mix it up. At one point in my reading, I was reading both a hard-hitting nonfiction about how eco-colonialism was speeding up climate change, and I would trade off 50 pages of that with another 50 pages of a monster romance where a woman was fucking a giant spider alien. Because I believe in diversity of my reading. But regardless, I think a lot of people get so caught up in this idea of books being the goodly, moral, bettering type thing that they are mad when the big readers are proving them wrong. When the big readers that actually are devouring the books are devouring the pulp fiction, the kitschy stuff, the scary stuff, the stuff that makes them, tuck the hair behind their ear and kick their feet. Those are the majority of books that are getting consumed. Like every other kind of media, nobody wants to consume only the serious stuff because nobody wants to have only a serious life. Now, I love reading nonfiction. I love mixing it in with all my other books. And there are people who love reading the highbrow literary, but books are just books. They're just another form of media. They're not better than anything else. They're not better than video games, although video games tend to have the opposite effect, where they are considered morally inferior in a lot of ways. We just gotta stop putting weird morality values on media, okay? What matters in a media is what is in the thing itself. The format it takes does not predispose any one form of media to one moral value or another. And we just need to drop that. So those were my theories. If you think I forgot one or that you have one to add, please let me know down in the comments. But moving forward, I wanted to talk about how I wish we could frame this dichotomy between those who read a lot and those who read less. And that is to recognize the symbiotic relationship between the two and how we are still all one community. And what we're talking about here when we talk about this is very common in every community, every interest, hobby, fandom. There's always going to be the vast majority of participants who are casual. They like that thing a little bit, participating in it pretty regularly, up to the people who are absolutely obsessed, and maybe it's their entire personality, but they love it so much that they want to dedicate their entire social media following to this thing. Now, they need an audience for that social media following to make it a thing, and that's where the casual participants come in. They help bolster the members of their community that want to create an entire social media presence dedicated to that thing. And in return, those hardcore participants then turn around and give a lot of information to the casual participants. For example, I'm a very casual gamer. I don't play a lot. I am a PC gamer. I have tried both smaller handhelds and console and TV. Just PC, and only a very small handful of games. But I still keep up with a few video game channels and Let's Players because they do the work so I don't have to. They will play all the games and keep up with all the announcements and show footage of the actual play, and I can watch and pick out the couple of them that I want, just a few. And now I have more games that I love, and I didn't have to do the giant amounts of searching because the hardcore fans, the hardcore gamers, already did that for me. Likewise, if you're a casual reader, hardcore booktubers help you. The more books they read, the more they can explain what the books are about and maybe comp them to titles that you like. Oh man, book A reminds me so much of book B, and you loved book B. You read it a year ago, but you still think about it, and so now you know to get book A. Those kinds of information exchanges are really helpful in a community all about media, especially in a day and age where media is fracturing a lot and we're relying more and more on social media for our basic news. There is a symbiotic relationship, and I do think a lot of people recognize that. A lot of people will be like, yeah, I'll watch a 20 book haul and pick one book from it that I'm interested in, and that kind of thing. Although, I don't really watch hauls myself. Buying giant amounts of things still gives me the hives, but regardless, I would like us to focus more on that, on the concept of the people who are doing it a lot can then turn and benefit the people who only do it casually, rather than making it into this competition that most people, the vast majority of people, never intended. Again, I cannot stress this enough. I could not name for you the number of books a single other person has read so far this year. I could not name for you a single other amount that another person read last year. I am way too fixated on my own numbers to even care about anybody else. And I think that anyone who picks up books with any amount of regularity, if it's one a year, congrats, you're one of us. You're a reader. And I hope you love whatever booktube channels you have decided to watch. So there we have it. The weird hate that readers get, why I think it happens, and what we should do instead. Again, if you think I missed something, a theory, if you think there's another aspect to this that you would like to add, please let me know down in the comments. And again, if you have ever seen anyone doing the reverse, giving the reverse hate of hating on people who read little, give the receipts so that we can all block that person without hating and move on with our day in a nicer, more cohesive community. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.